Welcome to Boys in the Berg, the podcast all about Pittsburgh, these boys, and today, an additional boy with us. My name is Chris Speranza. I almost said JJ. My name is Chris Speranza.
I'm JJ Speranza.
And with us today is not only just another boy, it's a man. It's a Pittsburgh legend.
You're just making me feel old.
With us today, you know him, you know his voice. Mr. Rick Sebak is with us today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
So pretty much, yeah, I just want to kind of talk to you. JJ, it's been a big fan of yours for a very long time.
Yes, indeed.
So it's just, very exciting to have you on our podcast to have conversations about your time in public television and just going from there. So I'm gonna let the fanboy ask the first question. So that's JJ.
First thing, on June 5th, happy 53 years in broadcasting.
Wow. No, it won't be quite 53. Let me think.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be 52
Oh, darn it. Okay, I got the wrong note in.
in public broadcast. Well, it's just like all these things. There's a lot of different anniversaries. I first worked for a public television station in South Carolina, starting on my 20th birthday, and I remember that because the woman who ran the show, Josie Carey, who's a legend in Pittsburgh, she was doing a show in South Carolina. I was going to the University of North Carolina, and my mother saw an article in the paper, and I sent her a letter and all of this. But I started on my birthday, the very first day as a summer intern with South Carolina Educational Television, which is what they call the PBS system in South Carolina. And when I went in, Josie said, "How are you today?" And I said, "Great, it's my birthday." And she said, "No, you don't start a new job and the first day say it's your birthday. That's too much." So I always remember that. And so yeah, this year on my birthday, I just worked there that summer. I still was in college, so I did 2 more years of college before I actually got a job. 6 months after I graduated, I got a job at South Carolina Educational Television, and I worked there for 11 years.
So you walked in and you said, "Where's the cake?" Like,
Right, exactly.
I'm here.
Are you guys ready to sing?
That's awesome. Yeah, being in South Carolina, was it a big transition going from Pittsburgh to the South for you?
Well, I went to North Carolina, UNC at Chapel Hill, and that was an interesting transition. Yeah, I had never been to the South, and I remember I was accepted there, and then accepted that invitation to go to the University of North Carolina without ever having been there. And my dad was a big fisherman, and he said, "I'd like to go to the Outer Banks and do some fishing." And so the whole family went to the Outer Banks the summer before I started in Chapel Hill. And I remember it was the first time my mom saw the ocean,
my gosh.
and stuff like that, because, she was from Hazelwood, and both of my parents from Hazelwood, and mom had never traveled much. And that was the first time she saw the ocean. That would have been the summer of 71. I had just had my wisdom teeth extracted. And we spent a week at the Outer Banks. It was just beautiful. And, it's a beautiful place. And then we came home, and I think like 2 weeks later, we drove back to North Carolina to Chapel Hill, and I started school there. So, I liked the South. I remember I thought at first that everybody was putting me on with those Southern accents. Everybody sounded like they were on Andy of Mayberry. But I got over it quickly. I realized, oh, that really is the way people talk down here. So, I learned to love the South. And I said, when I lived down South for essentially 16 years, 15, 16 years, I lived in the Carolinas. And then Pittsburgh was my home. I grew up in Bethel Park. I went to Bethel Park High School. So Pittsburgh was that distant place that was home. And then when I got this job at WQED in 1987, and I moved back to Pittsburgh, since then the Carolinas have seemed like that distant place that I love. It feels like home. So, I never mind going back to the Carolinas. And I lucked out. My sister, uh, when she and her partner Bill decided to retire and move somewhere else, they moved from Columbus, Ohio, uh, to Charlotte. You might know Charlotte. It's
Yes, I
Yeah,
do.
not far from Wilmington. And I love the fact that they're there, and that anytime I want to take a vacation, they're willing to let me have their spare bedroom, and it's just really nice. I love the Carolinas, and they're at you have your choice of like 5 or 6 beaches there. But when I was in college, Wrightsville Beach there at Wilmington is where I always went, because my best friend at college lived. His parents still lived in Wilmington, and we would go down there and go to Wrightsville Beach.
Wow, well, you have my information. Next time you're down there, there's a free dinner with your name on it. When we get out there.
Don't say that unless you mean it.
I do.
Um, and no, and when you said you were interested in food and everything, I mean, certainly you've been to Calabash.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I
My
mean,
mother's grandfather lives in Calabash,
really?
or
Wow.
outside Calabash. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I mean, yeah, the Calabash is sort of out there in the middle.
Oh, I'm sorry. My wife's grandfather. I just said my mother's. Sorry about that.
I thought if you said your mother's grandfather, wow, he must be really old. Um,
My cousin uncle's former roommate.
but there was a place actually that I loved, and it's in my show, Sure Things. We did a segment about Calabash,
Yes, you
and
did.
Ella's was there. Ella's was my favorite, and it burned down. I'm going to say 2 or 3 years ago now. And I every time I go down, I miss it. But my sister and Bill have always found other new places to try, so that's good.
With a town called Calabash, you can't go wrong with the food.
Well, I mean, there's some places we laugh about because I think they're sort of not worthy. But there's a little place right down at the water where you can buy seafood and you can sort of sit at these tables under an umbrella and all that. We like that place a lot. But there's some fancier places there too. So
Well, that's
um,
cool.
I also love a place in Southport. Uh,
Oh, we were just in Southport this weekend.
yeah, no, the name of the street is in the name of the bar, and they have oysters and pork rinds and
More street oysters?
more street oysters.
Ah,
Yes.
we were just there on Saturday or
Hey, I
Sunday.
love that place. That's a place I always want to go when I'm down there. So,
I can see
um,
why. Their food is incredible, so I definitely see your point there.
and I always like that. And actually, my one of my college roommates and his wife just moved to Wilmington from. I mean, he's originally from Fayetteville. They're both originally from Fayetteville, but they've been living in Lillington, North Carolina, and they just built a house and moved to Wilmington because their son and grandchild were there. So uh, uh, that the Mayos, Jim and Karan Mayo, and so I know lots of people now down there in that corner of the state, and I'll come back as soon as I can.
That's wonderful. It is a great little corner to come to. I am interested though, whenever you were in school in North Carolina, what was the name of the restaurant? Oh, there's 2 restaurants I looked up that, like, you have to go to these restaurants evidently if you go to North Carolina, and it is Sunrise Biscuit or Time Out Restaurant. Were those
I know
around back
neither.
in the
I know neither one of them.
Okay, never mind. Sorry.
No, either is a the Carolina Coffee Shop. That was
Oh,
essential when I was there, and I think it's still there.
okay.
For breakfast and lunch, just really great, and really near the building where I double majored in English and what they called RTVMP at the time, radio, television, motion pictures. It's now called the College of Communication or something like that. But that was right up from the Carolina Coffee Shop, which is right on Franklin Street. But there was a oh something like Hector's Hot Dogs or somebody's hot dogs that I loved on the corner there, and the whole idea of in the Carolinas, if you order a hot dog, it's going to come as a chili dog unless you say hold the chili. And I like the idea of that, and I like slaw dogs and all that kind of stuff. And I have many great, wonderful memories of places to go. It was the Ratskeller. You went down these stairs right off Franklin Street, and
Oh, yeah, okay.
yeah, I love that place too. So But I think the last couple times I've been back to Chapel Hill, I've been alone. So I think you eat differently when you're just wandering alone. Um,
Well, funny thing that you talk about hot dogs, I ended up coming across a video. It looked like it was during like the pandemic time, where you talked about the O closing down in Oakland, and you mentioned on there that there was a certain hot dog that you liked, which was mustard, onions, pickles, and relish.
right.
So I went to Sheets today, and I got that exact thing.
And
So the crunchiness of the pickle and the saltiness of the hot dog really work well together.
and at the O, that was something that they called like it was a standard. I learned about it from them. It
Oh,
wasn't something that I came up with myself. But if you said I'll have mustard, onions, pickles, and relish, they knew that combo at the O.
oh,
I thought of the O today because I listened to you guys uh, not only talk about Kennywood, but also a little bit about fish fries. And you know, of course, you equated it to the March Madness and all of that. Uh, but the potato patch fries obviously wins. And
uh-huh.
uh,
Yeah,
I,
I
I,
can.
I was trying to find it, and I started, and I realized I could probably find the link, but I didn't find it in time. I don't know if you know that you guys talked about when they stopped serving that one kind of cheese, but then there was the incident where the woman like sued them because the cheese was too hot.
Yes, they did at McDonald's, like the hot coffee, like it's hot cheese
Yes, but
now.
she said the cheese was too hot at the potato patch, and Randy Bauman and Bill Crawford at WDVE found the guy from Kennywood Memories who ran the potato patch. That guy that's in the show,
Oh my
and he works for the CIA or something now. And he had researched it all, and he said there's no way that cheese could have been too hot because it was at the time of day, and he said by that time the cheese was always cold, and it was just excellent. It was really really good. Um, but I always say, I mean, obviously I love potato patch fries, but the O fries were 10 times better.
Yeah, the video I watched was, it was that. It had you talking about that hot dog, and then it was the old clip from back in the days talking about
Right.
the
I showed the clip from a hot dog program.
yeah, and, like, the mountain of french fries, like, just like, "This is our medium." Like, what?
Well, yeah, there's the little kid that says, "I can't believe there's a system larger than this one." And also, there's the girl who said, and I'm thinking like McDonald's. I said I'd have a large fries, and she goes, and then when I saw it come on, she goes, "It's just me. It's just me that's gonna eat this." It was like 10 gallons of hot French fries.
That's like what Five Guys Burgers and Fries claims to do, but, like, they took it to another level. That like and JJ and I talked about this. Potatoes are cheap. Like, you can get, like, a bunch of potatoes for a good price, and, like, at Kennywood, they just had that little hatchet thing, just next one, next one. Like,
They had that same thing at the O. They had that same,
oh,
that like you put the potato in sort of vertically and and it came down. They had that same thing at the O. Yeah, I guess that's a standard French fry cutter, industrial French fry cutter.
That
uh,
makes sense. Is it safe to say that the cheese at the O was comparable to, uh, Kennywood's, or are we thinking it's probably better than it?
I'm never a big cheese guy on fries, so
Oh, okay.
I would bow to you guys on that. I mean, I've been going to Kennywood all my life. I haven't been in the summertime for a while. um, but I go every year for the uh, the holiday lights in December,
mhm.
um, and I that's probably been my biggest connection to Kennywood in recent years. But I've never had one of those square ice creams with the chocolate.
Oh,
And
it's
like you guys
so
took that, to
good.
the end. It was just, I'd rather get soft serve on the way home or something like that. uh, we might have to drive past Page Dairy Mart or my favorite now. I mean, we wouldn't have driven past it on the way back to Bethel Park, but I love Glenn's custard in Springdale.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's my favorite place to go get ice cream now. I mean, it's custard, it's not ice cream, but it's real and it's really good. And they make sandwiches too that you can buy 6 in a pack, and I'll put them in the freezer or
I don't
reward.
usually I usually don't like to make a mess when I'm eating ice cream, but that's the only time I make an exception is that Kennywood chocolate dipped cone. Like, I'll
You
let it
guys
get
can have it.
everywhere.
No, it just I don't know why it just has never been a thing in our family, and all of that. So it's just but I think when I've been there for holiday lights, I've had potato fetch fries. I think I had them with Beth Snodgrass one year because she's sometimes there too. I went and heard her read the night before Christmas, and that's what I do too.
Oh, yeah, they do
Oh,
that with, like, you, Pittsburgh Dad,
Exactly.
any
Yeah,
other
Pittsburgh Dad does a Pittsburgh version. I just do the straight thing, but it forced me to learn it. I felt it was the most famous poem in the English language. I should know this by heart. So I can still say it by heart. You don't want to hear it now.
And, speaking of Kennywood, well, obviously, Kennywood Memories is I listened to the podcast Gum Bands before everything, and I know
that
you
was our
said
homework.
that was our homework. You and it sounds like you're pretty much gonna live and die with, like, that Kennywood Memories being, like, the top thing. Uh, the
Well,
video
it's certainly the top thing in Pittsburgh. If you go outside Pittsburgh and and as a PBS audience, I think I'm more famous for a hot dog program. That's the one. That's the national show that people know. And actually, I was really delighted. I got a fan letter from Winnipeg, Manitoba, about
Whoa.
2 or 3 weeks ago. A guy said, the PBS station up here in Canada used to run those every year. We'd be able to see a hot dog program and sandwiches that you will like, but they don't do that anymore. And so I went online to see if I could find the DVDs, and they're really expensive. And I'd rather give you guys the money than Jeff Bezos. So can you help me? And so I did. I just sent him those DVDs, and I've been planning for a while now a trip this summer. I want to drive to North Dakota and Idaho. Montana's in between, but those are the last 2 states that I haven't been to. I've been to
Oh,
all 48 other states, but I've never been to North Dakota or Idaho. So that's my goal this summer is to drive from here up to, and then when I got that thing, I realized that Winnipeg, Manitoba is directly north of Fargo, North Dakota. So when he
oh.
sent a thank you note, I said, so here's the deal. Can I, you would give me a reason to drive to Winnipeg. Can we have coffee? And he said, oh, sure. Come on. Coffee, beer, whatever you want. Come up. So that's going to be part of my plan. And then I thought I could drive across Canada and come back down into Idaho rather than travel the incredible width of Montana.
That's totally fair. That's a long state.
uh,
But I've been to Montana before for my pies and bakeries show. So, uh, you know, I don't need to go to Montana. I just need to go to North Dakota. And I probably won't see as much of North Dakota as if I were driving across the states. But I also like the idea of going up into Canada.
That's a yeah, and you actually, this is one of my notes here. You did something in your there's a I forget which special it is, but it's the one where you drove Route 30 like almost in its entirety. And my brother and I have always wanted to do that. So like,
Yeah, that's a ride along the Lincoln Highway. Um,
loved it.
and what I love about it is it's not as cliche as Route 66.
Mhm.
And it's older than Route 66. It was the first transcontinental highway. And, you know, it was called the Lincoln Highway. It was before they gave numbers to highways. So I love the idea that uh, it starts in Times Square. And if once you cross the river from New York City and you're in New Jersey, it's US 1. Basically,
Oh,
is US 1 to Philly. And then in Philly, it becomes 30. And these are all numbers that were given after it was the Lincoln Highway. In the olden days, you would just have a book that told you how to stay on the Lincoln Highway, which was an artificial name given to these roads and that had been selected carefully. But 30, when they gave them numbers, and so US 1 goes along the coast there, the east coast of the United States, and then in Philly, it becomes 30. And it's 30. The Lincoln Highway is 30 all the way to western Wyoming. but they didn't want to give 30 to the Lincoln Highway the whole way to San Francisco. So in western Wyoming, it turns north and goes to Portland, Oregon, which I kind of like because we ended
Okay.
up in Portland one time and they said, "Oh, we're on 30. This is the same road as in Greensburg. It's the same as Penn Avenue was, you know?" So it's, I love all that stuff. I love the history of everything. Not so much the history of government or war or, all of that, but the history of goofy things like amusement parks and hot dogs and all of that.
Which fits us like perfect. Like like I'm like the big amusement park person and JJ's well, both of us are food. So we both love food and like that last episode of the Kennywood foods and everything, like I was like, we're 20 minutes in and we got through, just talking about corn dogs. Like
And I was flattered that at one point you called them the Rick Sebak corn dogs. I love being a corn dog.
I swear they were moved from like that center
I
area, but
think you're right. I don't think
yeah.
they sell them in that. Oh, there's a name for that building. It's an old one. It's an old refreshment building. Yeah, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head.
Yeah, but yeah, the other thing that's kind of going viral, little bit viral of Kennywood is from the Kennywood Memories video of the gentleman on the Thunderbolt, and he's standing on it, and his legs are just trapped in between like the bar that goes down, and he's greasing the tracks, and it's slowly going viral right now. But what
Well,
was your
that's
reaction?
Gino. That's you all right, Gino. The same guy.
Oh,
It's I th- that may be the most famous scene I think in any of my shows is when Gino slips while doing the walk around in the morning on the Thunderbolt, and uh, uh, Brian Brian Bartley is the guy who is working with. I said, who gets none of the notoriety, but he's the guy who says, "You all right, Gino? Sure, you're all right." Um, and it's because he had slipped on another day. But and then Gino did do the tracks, and yeah, I know there's like people still show it and say like OSHA doesn't allow this anymore. Well, that was 37 years ago that we shot that.
good times.
And But it's I Bill Crawford on the WDBE show at some point within the last 10 years dubbed him the Yinzer Centaur, half man, half roller coaster. And I thought that was excellent, the Yinzer Centaur, Gino, Gino Chambourdon.
That is amazing. That's so great.
Well, did you have an initial reaction seeing that for the first time? Like,
Seeing,
him greasing the tracks like that and pulling off a Titanic, like, on the track.
yeah, oh, I mean, we were there, so it wasn't like we were seeing, oh yeah, well, we saw him do it, and we said, hey, we want to get some shots of that too. I mean, he was also, if you saw those, I did a couple of later things back when I did Nebby. I did some extra shows about from the old footage,
Mhm.
but they also worked on the laser loop. Those same two guys, those were their rides, the Thunderbolt and the laser loop, and so they good times on both and bad times.
Yeah,
Where was the laser loop in Kennywood? I don't even know.
it was by the entrance when you first walked in.
It's like sort of by where Lost Kennywood is now.
Okay. Oh, I'm totally off.
Yeah, no, it wasn't way over there by where you walk under the road now. You used to be able to get in over there too by Lost Kennywood. In fact, in Kennywood Memories, you see Beth Snodgrass coming in that way with a bunch of other people, and we have an entry thing there. In fact, there was a big parking lot there, and that became Lost Kennywood. Although some of that was also the swimming pool. I guess, it was a gigantic swimming pool.
Uh,
Uh,
spe Sorry, Chris.
nope,
I
go
keep
ahead,
cutting you
JJ.
off. I just got so much. Speaking of your specials, every Saturday or Sunday morning, my wife and I have a tradition, and we watch either the Pennsylvania Roadshow or the Pennsylvania diners and other restaurants, and it is a tradition to have pancakes, bacon, and watch those shows, and it is like ingrained in our bodies to do it every weekend for 10 years now.
Wow, thank you. No, I mean, I love both of those shows, and um, the it's funny. They were both funded by an organization that doesn't really exist anymore called PPTN, Pennsylvania Public Television Network. Um, and the woman who hired me at QED, Nancy Lavin, always sort of, laughed at PPTN. They would fund shows that she called Disease of the Month, and they would always be sort of medically oriented. And she said, why don't we propose one that you would do that wouldn't be, medically or disease oriented, but could be fun? And I said, how about just driving around the state of Pennsylvania? And that's how the Pennsylvania Road Show came about. And I mean, I went to places I'd never been in Pennsylvania. My dad used to have a hunting cabin up near Warren, and he also had one, he and a bunch of other guys, and one near Renovo. I don't remember how they say it there. Renova, I think.
I think so. Sounds right.
And he, and so I'd been to those places, but I'd never been out farther east and stuff like that. So I loved doing the Pennsylvania Road Show. And when we showed that at QED on an in-house screening, which we used to do, and Chris Fenimore was there, and he goes, there was one diner that we did in the Pennsylvania Road Show in York, Pennsylvania. And Chris said, I could watch a whole show about diners. And I said, I could do a whole show about diners. So we put in another proposal to PPTN, and they said, yeah, they got a nice reaction to the road show. And so we did that Pennsylvania Diners. And that's the show that made PBS sit up and say, hey, you could be doing national shows too. So I lucked out with all that. So, but I am a very lucky guy.
That's amazing. I don't know how I don't know how you didn't get sick of diner food, but at the same time, I can totally see why you could not get sick of it because it's so good.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was a great ride. I mean, we did a couple of different rides. I think, it's too long ago. I don't remember how many trips across Pennsylvania did we do. But and that was before search engines. We were just going on recommendations from people and stuff like that. I mean, and I think we found when we were on the road, we would find out, hey, you got to know about this diner over here. And we would go and just show up and say, listen, we're doing this show for public television. Can we come in and do a story with like no prep time for them or anything? And some of those are the best stories. So
everything was simpler back then. You just walk in and you're just like, we're doing a show. You want to be on? Did they have to sign anything? Just like, or is it just like we're recording? It's red, like we're going.
Well, we didn't do site releases at that time, but we would have to get a release from everybody. But anybody that I talk to, I usually do at least an oral, visual, recorded release. In other words, if I were you, I say, tell me your name, and is it okay that we get your picture and use it in our show? Just so we have that on tape. That someone said, yeah, go ahead. And
that makes the part where you're at State College that much funnier because there's a bunch of rowdy college kids that you're just trying to catch on camera. I can't imagine how that all went.
No, I mean, oh yeah, that's a fun segment. And I worked with an editor, Rick Manugi, and he always loved doing those things, and he called them explosions of voices. When you just have a whole bunch of people. And actually, they were harder to do when we had linear editing. I mean, I graduated from linear editing where you had to build the show in order to digital editing, which allowed you to move things all around all the time. Those explosions became a lot easier to do. So we're lucky.
Yeah. No, that's no, I like all that information right there. And just like when you say like explosive of noises, just like everyone's just like carrots and peas, like just kind of like that, just a bunch of noises going at once.
Hey, no, I mean, and you never, sometimes you get lucky and people would, well, especially at 2 and 3 in the morning, like we did there at Penn State. Yeah.
Wow. Can't even think of the last time I was up till 2 in the morning, if I'm being honest.
I join you there. I don't remember that either, but
I did. So as you were saying, PPTV did a lot of funding for that. I was interested in the Buell Foundation. I was just interested to see what information you had on them because it does seem like they do a lot of work with, funding your shows and like a lot of work in Pittsburgh. It sounds like it's an amazing organization.
They've certainly been amazing to me. And I don't know. I mean, I think in my North Side show, and I know that in the North Side, we talk a little bit about the Boggs and Buell department store, which was an upscale department store on the North Side. And oddly enough, my mother worked there, so she was my interview for that segment. I asked my mom to meet us on the North Side, and I interviewed her about working at Boggs and Buell while she tried to figure out where exactly it would have been, because the North Side has been changed so much, and Allegheny Center Mall came in and moved all that, and they have several different names for it now. But you know, that was totally cool, and they that's the first. I think North Side Story was the first thing the Buell Foundation funded, and then you know, my local shows, they've just astounding. I mean, I don't know that I've ever sat down and counted how much money they've given me, but it has to be in the millions. Because for a long time they funded every year our local show. So they've just been astounding to me. And when my mom passed away, and I'm going through some of her things, all of us kids knew that my mom, growing up below the tracks in Hazelwood, very poor, had a scholarship to go to Carnegie Tech. And she went to Carnegie Tech for 2 years, I believe, until the World War II ended, and my dad wanted to get his degree at Pitt. And she stopped work. She stopped studying at Carnegie Tech and got a job to help pay for him to go through Pitt. And so she didn't finish her degree there until the early '80s when she went back to Carlo, and they recognized all her credits from back at Carnegie Tech, and she was able to get her bachelor's degree, which she always wanted in the early '80s, before I moved back to Pittsburgh. And when she passed away, looking through some of her papers, that uh, scholarship that she got to Carnegie Tech was from the Buell Foundation. So, which just astounded me, the Buell Foundation helping my family since the 1940s, and making a huge impact on our lives.
Wow. No.
So, and it's all from the Boggs and Buell department store.
Now in today's day, if you try to transfer credits, it's impossible. So that's
Oh, see,
fantastic.
I never had to do it, so I've never tried it. But no, I mean, and I think that's one of the reasons why she loved Carlo, was they recognized her credits from a long time ago.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then the other thing I know I would kind of wanted to ask about is I know I talked a little bit before we went on about your time in France, because the only reason why I asked is because my wife and I are going to attend for our 10-year anniversary to go to either Paris or, as you call it, the Pittsburgh of France, Lyon. Uh, and I'm taking Duolingo right now, and I miss one day, if I miss one day, that owl is on me like it's no tomorrow. So, like, what? Uh, my
Well,
biggest
so
worry is going.
you can buy assurance so that you can't miss a day.
Oh, I can.
Yes. Yeah, they offer you that, just to make sure that if you think, for some reason you can't make a day, you can buy like 5 days of possible not working Duolingo. I was gonna say, like, what's your day count now on Duolingo?
I'm on a streak right now. I gotta do it tonight. 51 days in a row. So I'm I'm going. I'm rolling.
I do Brazilian Portuguese on there.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Yeah, I was a foreign exchange student to Brazil when I was in high school, and uh, my family didn't speak English, and so you learn pretty quick. You learn how to get along, and but I had no written or visual comprehension of the language at all. It was totally oral and all of that. So I thought, oh, here's an opportunity. So I find it's as much a video game as it is an actual learning experience.
Honestly,
Um, But I think I'm at 2750 days.
Oh, wow.
In a row?
That's amazing.
Now, but I did when I was in the hospital, when I had lots of time, I did miss a day or two, but I had that, thing that clicked in to save you. And I don't think I've used it since I was in the hospital, which was 6 years ago. I've done it every day. Um, I either do it, I used to do it early in the morning or late at night. Now I do it at night because they've changed the way you get triple points. Now, in order to get triple points, it goes to the next day. And I don't want to spend that much time in the morning doing it. So when we finish here tonight, I will do my Duolingo.
JJ, what language are you going to learn now?
Ironically enough, I work for the local government here, and there's a lot of Spanish speakers and a little bit of Portuguese, a little bit of Spanish. So I'm trying to learn that, but I haven't downloaded Duolingo yet. I may need to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not hard. And I mean, I think it'd be hard to learn Chinese, where we had to learn a new alphabet or something like that.
I ended up taking 4 semesters of Chinese in college, and I don't really remember much.
uh, well, I was lucky when I was in grade school. There was a guy, Randy Larkin. His mom was a French war bride. His parents had gotten married right after World War II. And she was from France. She was from Marseille, and she thought she'd speak better English if she tried to teach kids how to speak French. And so she used to come to our class every day, every Tuesday, starting in second grade. And that lasted through sixth grade, when by then there were too many kids in the class who had come and gone. And then we used to go to her house, those of us who wanted to continue. And so I think for like 2 or 3 years, and that once you get to her house, then she helped teaching us how to cook things and everything. She taught us how to make a French stew, which is called ragout. Not like ragout, the tomato sauce, but a beef and potatoes French stew, and ragout, ragout, and that became a standard in my family. I mean, we made that all the time. One time, my mother put carrots in it, and I told Mrs. Larkin, and she said, "No, there are no carrots. That makes it Irish," which was my mom. My mom's all Irish, so no carrots in this French stew, just potatoes and beef.
Yeah. Also, now that I'm thinking about don't add carrots into stew, and I noticed the hot dog recipe that you had. I like ketchup on my hot dogs. I don't know, and I know Chicago doesn't like ketchup on their hot dogs. But what's your opinion? I think I already see it in your face. Your opinion of ketchup on hot dogs?
As a kid, I did all the time. As an adult, I'm pretty much a mustard guy. Uh, Basically, mustard, onions, relish, and pickles. Um, but to me, the most important thing about getting a hot dog is natural casing or skinless. And to me, if I'm gonna like treat myself to a hot dog, I want natural casing. And uh, I was surprised, and I don't know, I guess delighted in one way as a Pittsburgher to find out that skinless wieners were invented in Pittsburgh, at the
Oh,
Mellon Institute. I think it's in my show Return to Downtown Pittsburgh that we got into that a little bit, because there was a hot dog vendor, and he had natural casing, and the thing is, when hot dogs were new, they were afraid they were going to run out of natural casings, intestine linings from sheep or whatever they used, and so they hired scientists to try to come up with an artificial casing, an edible casing, and that was done at Mellon Institute in Pittsburgh before the Mellon Institute building was built. There was Mellon Institute on the Pitt campus, like in the early 1900s, and uh, it was funny because I remember I was working with Nancy Coates, was as my associate producer, and a guy at a breakfast that Mayor Murphy had, and I went and I explained what I was working on, and an older gentleman came. He goes, the skinless wiener was invented here in Pittsburgh. You should check that out. And I said, wow, no one's ever said that to me. And so I said to Nancy, why don't you? He said it was at Mellon Institute. Why don't you walk down to, because Mellon Institute's only a block or two from QED. why don't you walk down there and see what you can find out from the librarian there, blah, blah, blah. And the librarian said, we can't find anything in the 1950s. There was a reference and it wasn't enough. And I said, that's way too late, 1950s. And so I said to Nancy, see if you can find out who claims to have invented the skinless wiener. And it was a packing house in Chicago. They claimed to invent the skinless wiener. And she called them and they said, oh, we have a little, pamphlet on it. And she said, oh, will you send us one of those? And they said, sure. And the first line of the pamphlet was working with the Mellon Institute in Pittsburgh. And they developed the skinless wiener. And the scientists had decided that they could make a very thin cotton casing, which would be edible. You could eat the cotton, a very thin cotton. And they were made fun of. We found out by other scientists that they were trying to put, undershirts on sausages. And what they did was they made the sausages using these cotton casings. And when they smoked them, the casings fell off. But the sausage remained. The casing had served its purpose and then fell off. So it's kind of a serendipitous discovery, but interesting. And somewhere there on the Pitt campus, and in Oakland, scientists created the first skinless hot dogs. I still want natural casing whenever I can get it. And
I
actually,
love this passion.
there's a hot dog place now in Springdale. And they offer you the choice, which I think, oh, that's really nice.
Oh.
Do you want a skinless wiener, or because some little kids and stuff don't want to, have to bite through the casing. But like the hot dogs at the O, they were natural casing. Unless you got an all beef, the all beefs at the O were skinless, but the regular hot dogs at the O were natural casing.
That's why there's so much of a bite to it.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
And actually, in the hot dog show, the hot dog place that I loved in Columbia, South Carolina, when I lived there, Frank's Hot Dogs, they also had natural casing wieners. The natural casing was you really snapped into it. And I think they were from New Jersey, those hot dogs, but Frank's doesn't exist anymore.
The passion for hot dogs is so unreal on this podcast.
Love it all.
This episode. I didn't even know skinless hot dogs was a thing. Like, Sheets is just, I don't know. I only grabbed Sheets because I was just like, okay, this is the Rick Sebak hot dog. I gotta try it real quick. Now I gotta go to a legitimate hot dog place and do the Rick Sebak as well. Like, I gotta find a good hot dog place.
It's not that easy. I mean, most places have skinless because it pleases kids and all of that, and it's easier for some people. But in the grocery store, it's really easy to tell if they fit into one of those little 10-packs, they're skinless. Because natural casing wieners, you need a little bag of them. But when I did my show for Nebby called Meet Pittsburgh, we did a packing place down in below Washington, PA, and they still make natural casing and skinless wieners, both. Albert's Meats, and
okay.
They're excellent. I'll always look for them, and you find them in some Giant Eagles and some you don't. But Albert's hot dogs, very, very good.
There is a really good hot dog place in Washington called Shorty's. I don't know if you've been
they
there.
serve Albert's hot dogs.
Yes, they do.
No, I love Shorty's. Shorty's is the best. I can't think of many times when I've gone to Washington I haven't thought, is Shorty's open?
My wife's uncle owns Trapazanos across the street from the one in downtown, and my wife grew up on their hot dogs.
Oh no, and the downtown place is much better than the one that's a little bit out.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because I don't know, it's one of those time machine places. When you walk in, you never know what if you feel like you're in a different era. And the wooden booths and all of that. And I'll tell you that I've never done a story there yet, but I always love to recommend to people, if you're traveling west out of here and you have to go through Zanesville, Ohio, you want to stop at Tom's Ice Cream Bowl.
Ooh, okay.
And It's a guy at work. His girlfriend was in nursing school in Zanesville, and he said to me, "Rick, there's this place you'd love. It's so 50s in Zanesville, Tom's Ice Cream Bowl." And I imagined, like, statues of James Dean and Marilyn Monroe and all that kind of stuff. And I just, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And then one time, I mean, because I would drive over to see my sister in Columbus when they were living there, when she was living there, and one day he heard me say, "I'm going to drive to my sister's tonight," and he goes, "Rick, you are stopping at Tom's Ice Cream Bowl tonight." I said, "Okay, okay," and I stopped, and I've never made the trip again that I don't stop at Tom's Ice Cream Bowl. It is astounding and wonderful, and it's you know uh, a total time machine. You walk through the doors, and I said, "It's not 50s, it's 40s. It's 1940s, I think." And they make all their own ice cream. They make little diner style sandwiches, egg salad sandwiches, hamburgers, that kind of thing. But they also roast like 6 different kinds of nuts in the front of the store, and you can buy almonds and red skin peanuts and regular white peanuts and all this kind of stuff. And it's just excellent. And Tom's Ice Cream Bowl is tremendous. And I love to tell the story about another guy at work who called me one Saturday morning and he said, "Rick, isn't there some place in Ohio that you love that you tell people about?" I said, "Tom's Ice Cream Bowl." And he said, "Can my wife and I drive there for a day trip?" And I said, "Oh, easily. It's like 100 miles exactly to Zanesville. You could drive over, have lunch at Tom's, and drive back." He said, "I think we're going to try to do it." And he called me that night. And he said, "Rick, how will we ever thank you?" And I said, "Yeah, it was good." And he said, "We walked in. There was only one other couple in the place. It was still early in the day. It was an elderly couple. And the man said, 'You want to sit with us?' And we said, 'Why not?' It was Senator John Glenn and his wife, the astronaut and senator, who lived in the next town. And Senator Glenn loved Tom's Ice Cream Bowl too. They got to sit and talk to John Glenn for an hour. And he said it was just, the ultimate American experience. And so that's another reason, well, John Glenn has passed away since then, but it's a reason to stop.
Wow, that's really cool.
We actually drive through Zanesville once a year when we go to the Indy 500 and out in Indianapolis. So we'll make that on our list to stop there for sure.
Oh, no, yeah. If you're driving through Zanesville, I recommend Tom's to anyone. It's just really fun and really good ice cream that they make there.
It is off 70. That's right, JJ.
See, there's a reason I bring a pen with me everywhere I go, Chris. 'Cause I can write stuff down like this.
See, I think it's off 40, but no, you're right. I've always gotten there off 70. It's the last exit. You drive through Zanesville, and then I always say, if you look to the right, you can see the back of the building, and it says Tom's Ice Cream Bowl on the back of the building. And it's Ohio. You can figure out how to get there really easily because all the roads are perpendicular.
Unlike Pittsburgh.
Right, yeah.
So this has been an awesome conversation. Lots about hot dogs, lots about Kennywood memories and everything like that. And I feel like we scratched the surface. But I do kind of want to wrap up by doing a Yinzer questionnaire.
Okay.
So I have about 5 questions on here that I want to start asking like Pittsburghers and just kind of seeing what they say. So I'll kind of start with the first question, which is favorite Permanente sandwich.
Capicola.
Oh, good choice.
That's a good one. Yeah. If you're going to a Pirates game, where do you park?
I'd park on the south side and take the boat.
That's the answer I was hoping from you.
That's the best way to do it, right?
Favorite Kennywood ride?
Easy. Auto race. Auto race. Sometimes it's auto ride. I don't know what they're calling it right now. The name changes or has changed over the years. But it was built in Beaver Falls. It's just classic, and it's definitely my favorite ride.
And what city is better? And you have to pick one: Cleveland or Philadelphia?
I'd say That's hard. Uh, I'd say Cleveland for one reason: the West Side Market, which
Oh
is
yeah.
just excellent. You know, and I mean, there are things I like in Philly too, but you know, Philly cheesesteaks, D'Alessandro's. um, but you know,
Melrose.
the Melrose. Everybody knows who knows goes to
Everybody
Melrose.
who knows.
Um, that's a good question. That's a good question for Pittsburghers.
And then finally,
Then
just
you could also like try like Weirton or Steubenville.
yeah. Oh, no. And then finally, just what's your favorite part about Pittsburgh?
My favorite thing about Pittsburgh,
Mhm.
that it's perpetually surprising.
Mm.
I've worked for 38 years at WQED. I, I'm still surprised at what I can learn about Pittsburgh, and you know, it's. I always say, as the 19th century became the 20th century, we were a world capital. The richest people in the world lived here, and you know, we still benefit from that. Um, with our foundation community, the Buell Foundation, the Heinz Foundation, the Hillman Foundation, all those things, they make Pittsburgh an unusual place. And um, you know, I don't know. My new show is going to be on April 3rd, called "Lucky to Live in Pittsburgh," and it's uh, Reduced Stone Quarry up near Butler. I knew nothing about this. I didn't even know we had sandstone quarries around here. And they, you know, they have an open pit mine where they cut sandstone out of the earth, and you know, market it for various reasons. And then the second story is Weatherbury Farm, which is a farm that I learned about 3 or 4 years ago out in Washington County, and they grow ancient grains and they mill them and market them. One day a month, you can go out to Weatherbury Farm and pick up their grains, and it's just an astounding thing that I, how would I know about it? I learned about it from some women that were so excited it was Weatherbury Farm Day, and I said, "What's Weatherbury Farm Day?" And uh, I make cookies, and I said, I'm getting ready to make my Christmas cookies, and I need some rolled oats. Do they have them? And they go, I don't know, call them. So I called, and they said, yeah. I said, do you happen to have rolled oats? "Oh, that's one of our specialties." So I've since learned from them that their einkorn flakes might be better than rolled oats, and I now make my cookies with einkorn flakes and rolled spelt, which is another kind of ancient grain. So I think they taste better, the cookies. And then the last thing is about the Mother's Milk Bank, Mid Atlantic Mother's Milk Bank, which is in the Strip District now. It's going to move at the end of this year or early next year. It's going to move to Bellevue. But I knew nothing about it. And, I, you know, it's in a little nondescript building in the Strip. And it's started 9 years ago. It helps babies in NICUs. And, you know, I knew very little, if anything, about lactation. But, you know, some women, when they have a baby, produce more milk than that baby can use, and they donate the excess. And, you know, it's just astounding. And so, you know, there's three examples of surprises, and they still come, you know, after 38 years of like trying to talk about Pittsburgh. It's just, I feel very lucky.
No, that's honestly a beautiful answer. Like it's and just kind of like scrolling through everything, and I'm sure JJ agrees. The the amount of people you get to interview. I was thinking about this on like my drive home from Sheets. And I was like the
After
amount of
having a good hot dog.
yeah, the, the people you get to interview. Life is great when you can talk to someone and be like, just tell me about yourself rather than like, you know, I don't know, like no fighting back or forth. It's just like, tell me about you. And it's I think life is great when you could talk to people about like their life and their experiences and everything. And so what you do is fantastic. Uh,
Well, I thank you. And I thank you guys for like, thinking I was worth an hour.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I learned more about Pittsburgh by watching your specials than I have going around the city sometimes. My brother and I, we talked about we have a list of all of your movies, and through this podcast, we're gonna like go through them, and we're gonna talk about them on the podcast and break them down and talk about like, all right, well, what places are still open, what places aren't, like, what do you guys remember? So we're really excited to go down that rabbit hole of all those movies and TV shows.
So the one of the reasons I want to know is like, what got you to Wilmington?
Oh, my wife and I decided that we wanted to live closer to the beach and live in the South and just try what life is like down here. And Wilmington just happened to be the city that called to us. And like we also for our careers too, like we had stuff that was lined up down here. But there is a huge amount of Pittsburgh people that are down here that we found through Pittsburgh bars, Pittsburgh restaurants that are very niche to this area, and it's incredible to have that Yinzer community down here.
Well, it was funny hearing you. I listened to a little bit of your fish fry show too, and I've heard the exact same thing from my sister. There aren't like fish fry places like there are in Pittsburgh. Um, and actually, it wasn't until I heard your thing that I realized that Catholic connection is really important. And you're right, there aren't a lot of, I mean, the percentage of Catholics in Pittsburgh is much, much higher than in the South, which I learned when I first went to Chapel Hill. You know, the Catholic church on campus was tiny. And, also ethnic names are not big in the South. Sebak is a really weird name down in the South. Um, you know, uh, Krapazinski would be even worse. um, but that's interesting. And I wanted to let you both know that a guy that I work with, he's an assistant editor at QED, Randall Cole said, "Oh, I know those guys. I went to high school with them. They were a little bit ahead of me." But Penn
Randy Cole.
Trafford,
Yeah,
Randy Cole.
I went.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, I went.
Well, he works with us now.
Oh wow.
But that's very Pittsburgh. Everybody knows everybody.
He was a year behind me from what I remember. But yeah, he was awesome.
He's a great kid.
No, he's still great.
No, yeah, I said was. He is.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, we are always so excited to come back to Pittsburgh because every time we come back to town, we see someone we know. Because in a city of 600,000 people, somehow we all know each other.
Exactly. But that's also a beauty of Pittsburgh. I said, I love the surprises, but part of the surprises is just, you know, how we are 1 degree of separation from everyone.
Uh, but this has been a fantastic interview. Shout out to Randy Cole. And also, if you do want to listen to us, we are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Leave us a comment and give us a 5-star review. And you can also follow us for the latest updates. Boys in the Berg, Instagram, X, Facebook, wherever you can find us on social media, and we'll give you them updates. So, Rick, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on and talking.